Alrighty, well, good afternoon and welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us for our virtual author talk today. My name is Andrew Doffney and I'm the Instruction and Outreach Librarian at the New Jersey State Library. And our speaker today is Alex Gulino, who is a photographer and author herself. Before we jump into anything, I just want to let you all know of some upcoming events that we're having here. This week is Money Smart Week, so some of you might have joined us Monday and Tuesday for some of our programs that we had geared to that, and we'll be wrapping up our observation of Money Smart Week next Wednesday, the 26th, with sustainable income strategies for retirement. So please join us for that. And then our next upcoming author talk is going to be on Thursday, May 11th, with Cheryl Woodruff Brooks, who's the author of Chicken Bone Beach, the pictorial history of Atlantic City's Missouri Avenue Beach. So please join us for that if you have the time. But moving on to today's presentation, Alex is an author that has been exploring ruins and abandoned sites since 2016. Her love of photography began in her teens when her father purchased her first camera, and later when she won her first photography contest for a local newspaper. While studying theater in college, she traveled across the United States, where she noticed many amazing sites that just needed to be photographed. Today, she travels as often as she can and has discovered a love of abandoned sites. So again, welcome, Alex. Thank you for speaking to our audience today on some of the images and your book, Garden State of Decay. Before we jump into the presentation, I just have a few housekeeping items to go over. First and foremost, we will be taking your questions at the end of her presentation, but please feel free to submit them at any time using the Q&A or the chat feature in the Zoom dashboard. Alex has graciously provided me with a copy of her slides, so I can share that with you so you can get a better look at maybe some of the pictures, or if you want to go back and revisit, you'll certainly have that opportunity. There will be a survey available at the end of the webinar, so we ask if you have time, please complete the survey. We always love hearing your feedback. And if you are interested in Alex's work and want to know more about her, you can visit her website, www.alexgulino.com, and you can find all sorts of fantastic images there and blog posts and all of the such. So. And one last thing, I just want to do a brief overview of the Zoom dashboard. This is what your dashboard should look like if you are using a PC or a Mac. If you are using a mobile device, the dashboard may look a little bit different, but all of the features will still be there. In the bottom left-hand corner, you will see your audio settings. This is where you can check if you're using an external listening device, like a headset or earbuds, to make sure that it's connected properly. At any point during the presentation, if you have any issues, there is a raise hand button here. You can click on that. That'll alert me, and I will send you a message in Zoom and hopefully be able to solve any problems that you are having. And lastly, again, if you have any questions or if you want to add to the conversation in the chat, there are the Q&A and the chat buttons. Please feel free to use them, and we'll address any questions at the end of the program. So that is everything that I have for you. So it's my pleasure to turn it over to Alex now.
Thank you so much, Andrew. Thank you so much for having me today. Hello, everyone. Welcome. I'm Alex Gulino, and thank you for that gracious introduction, Andrew. I am a photographer, and I don't know if you have the slides ready, Andrew, so I can start.
Yeah, I'm getting them up in 1 second.
And thanks to everyone for being here today. I know it's in the middle of the day, but I think some of you used your lunch hour to sneak out. So I appreciate that.
There we go. All right.
There I am. So yes, I have officially changed my title on LinkedIn to photographer, author, and educator of the abandoned. The photographer part came out first, and of course, that's why we're talking about Garden State of Decay, abandoned New Jersey today. And as Andrew mentioned, this started probably, in my teens, and you could go to the next slide, Andrew, if you don't mind. And thank you. And so it basically started where I grew up in Jersey City, and my father, as he mentioned, bought me a camera in my teens. And I didn't really understand much of it. And I remember my father wanted me to learn all this stuff because he was really into photography. Of course, the funny thing is now is that I'm showing him how to do stuff with photography. So when he gets stuck, I show him. Funny how that works out, isn't it? So yeah, I submitted a photo I had taken of the Bayonne Bridge, for anybody that's familiar with North Jersey, and it was a black and white, and I sent it over to the Bergen Record, if anybody remembers that. I don't know that that's still a newspaper. If anybody knows, just let me know. I'm not sure. And so I won that week, so I'm feeling real good. You know, I was like 18 or 19 at the time, and look at me, I'm in the newspaper. And from there, I was taking photos, and then eventually I went to college. And as Andrew mentioned, I studied theater, and I was in theater for many years. And I was even in some films and TV shows and you name it. Don't worry, you didn't miss anything big. I was always the guy in the background. But it's steady work, and it's nice work if you can get it. But that wasn't really why I got into acting. I love the stage. I love being in front of people, and there's like a certain magic there. So the film is, you know, the film part didn't really grab me. And I started getting more into photography. I almost switched my major in college to photography, and but I did not. I ended up graduating with a theater degree, and I just started looking around, and I noticed there's just so many beautiful things that needed to get photographed, and not necessarily shiny and new. Um, as you know, based on the book title and based on the introduction, and if you're familiar with my work, you know that most of my work is photos of abandonment, anything abandoned, ruins, all that stuff. And that actually started probably around 2015, 2016, when I had stumbled upon a YouTuber who was putting out videos of all these cool places he was finding in New Jersey. See, I was just looking for interesting things to visit in New Jersey. I realized I was traveling outside of the state to find cool things to visit. And then I realized I haven't spent a lot of time visiting where I actually live, right here in New Jersey. And I'm sure a lot of us are guilty of that because, you know, just like I'll never go to the Statue of Liberty because I look at it every day. So I started researching cool things to check out in New Jersey, and I found a lot of interesting things like Lucy down in Margate. If you're not familiar, she's this huge size elephant, and she's been there for a while. I believe she was put up for the World's Fair, but somebody can feel free to fact check me on that. And she's been sitting down in Margate for a while. I think she just got a little work done, little Botox, and she's looking all shiny and new again. And so I was looking for interesting things like that because I was like, there's got to be more instead of be just 9 to 5, go to work, come home, make dinner, watch TV, go to bed, rinse, repeat. That just became a little too boring for me. That was a little too routine for me. So naturally, I had to go out and find something that was a bit more interesting. So I stumbled upon that YouTuber, and not only was he finding interesting places, but he was finding abandoned places. And I was like, oh, I never would have thought of that. And I was just watching videos, and he was by himself. So, you know, bravo to him for having the courage to do that. And he was going into various things like an old factory and, you know, an old house. And these were locations that were, he just stumbled upon along old bike rails, like bike trails that, you know, the rails, the railroads, a lot of them got converted into biking or hiking trails. And so he was just finding these things randomly, and then we just do videos on them. And I was like, look at this guy. I'm like, he's a regular Vasco da Gama out there trying to find things and discovering new things and documenting them. And I was just so impressed with it. And I was like, I want to do that too. So that's basically how I got my start. Can I get the next slide, Andrew? So now we're on to the book here. So Garden State of Decay, Abandoned New Jersey. And this is one of the first locations I had found in my search when I was looking for abandoned places. And this is actually an abandoned hospital. I want to say it's in Somerset County. I've forgotten by now. And as you can see, like I said, it's a hospital. It was actually a sanitarium. And if you look on the left, you can see I was lucky. Glenn Gardner. Yes, thank you. Thanks, Steve. And as you can see, there's an old wheelchair left on the side. In the middle, we've got some furniture left over. On the right, there's like chemicals and medicine, and there's all kinds of things you find at the hospital. If you're lucky, not every abandoned place has, things left around and artifacts left around, but fortunately, this one does have that. And this place has been mistakenly labeled as an insane asylum and some other names, and that's not true. It actually is a sanitarium, was a sanitarium, and it's just been sitting there for, I don't know. I know Chris Christie, I think, was the one that might have shut this place down. So at least that long since Chris Christie was governor. And it's just been sitting there. And what always amazes me is that you can still find these things. Like on the picture on the far right there, you might see there's like little note cards there. And that's actually like patient records. So I guess HIPAA wasn't really a thing then. I don't know when HIPAA finally got put into place, but you'd be surprised at how many records I have seen over the years. And I have one friend that's like obsessed with collecting patient records. I don't know, it's just a quirky thing she does. And it's just amazing to see these spaces. And when you walk through these halls, there's no doubt about it that you absolutely feel the history here. I mean, it's eerie, and obviously you don't go alone, but there's something here. Like there's a story to be told. This place is trying to tell a story. So I get, super excited when I get to see a place like this. Could I have the next slide, Andrew? Here we go. These are two more photos from that same hospital. And on the left there, you can see that there's that corridor, the corridor we're all used to seeing in sanitariums, which of course was for lung diseases. Originally, they were just treating tuberculosis at this hospital. Eventually, they expanded it and they started treating all kinds of lung diseases. And of course, today, tuberculosis isn't quite the concern that it used to be. So naturally, this hospital wasn't as needed as it was. And on the right there, that's a photo of what I can only assume is the morgue. And you can see that nice cold table over there. And this room, I have to say, there's not too many places where I get too creeped out, but this room definitely had a darker vibe to it for sure. Next slide, please. Ah, yes, my favorite, abandoned transportation. That's kind of like my favorite thing. I will travel very far to see an abandoned boat, train, plane, you name it. They were absolutely my favorite. And normally you would think they're pretty easy to access because they're already outside. This plane on the left here was left over. I don't really quite remember the story. I have to read my own book again. And, but it was left over, and it turns out it's right next to an old abandoned airfield. And I believe, yes, I do recall, yes, PSE&G owns this property now. And so I'm not really sure what they're going to end up doing with this plane, or that structure in the back there seems to be a house. And I heard about this, and of course I had to go see the plane because I love abandoned transportation. And this thing was amazing. It was probably the first plane I had seen abandoned, and that was so exciting because just to think about where this plane has gone and the travels it's been through and the passengers that have been in there, the pilots, and I can only imagine the adventures it had. So it's kind of sad that it's just sitting there. Hopefully one day somebody will rescue this guy and maybe clean him up and put him in a museum or something. That would be amazing. And then on the right here, you see there's these two boats here, and they're actually not too far from each other. They're about, I would guess, about 30 minutes apart. The top one is from Seabright. And I don't know if anybody remembers, but about 3-4 years ago, this boat crashed. It went into a sandbar. And the story is that the owner did not have insurance on the boat. So, and he just didn't want to do anything with it. So he just walked away. He was traveling up, I believe it was from Baltimore, and he was heading home to Queens. And he didn't make it. I mean, he eventually made it, just didn't make it with the boat. And that boat got stuck there in Seabright for quite some time. I believe it was there for nearly a year. And everybody, it seemed like, from New Jersey was coming to find the boat so they could go take a picture of it. And funny enough, the name of the boat was, I'm not going to say this right because I don't speak French, but I want to say it's Joyeux, and that means happy. So I don't think it was a very happy ending for this boat, unfortunately. And yeah, he didn't have insurance, so he just abandoned it there. And this town of Seabright, after many months, decided to finally take the hit, and they had to pay for the cost to get this boat removed. In the state of New Jersey, in a case of an emergency, you are allowed to abandon your boat. So that's why that gentleman was allowed to just walk away from this and not have to deal with it. On the bottom right there, there's another boat. Now, this one I should say, in Seaside Park. And I had contacted just about every expert in New Jersey to find out the story behind this boat, and no one could help me. I reached out to libraries, historical societies, nautical, maritime museums, you name it. And no one could tell me why that boat was there. Most of them didn't even realize it was there. And it had been there for at least a few years. I didn't understand why it was there. Nobody knew the story. It was just sitting there forever. I recently found out, probably in the last like 6 months or so, and I think it was like on Reddit, that it turns out it was from Hurricane Sandy in 2012. And it got washed up on shore there, and it was just left for all those years. Sadly, I believe this was finally taken away in the past year, that that boat doesn't exist anymore. And that just further proves of why I love to document this stuff, because these are some crazy stories. Like I remember, like I said, with that one boat, it seemed like it was all over the news. So I just love to document this stuff, because you never know when it's going to go away. Can I have the next slide, Andrew? Ah, yes, the plane that tried to kill me. So, as I mentioned, abandoned transportation is my favorite. So yes, I will go. And I remember this day incredibly well, since I almost died that day. And it was a crazy day. We had to go up to West Milford, and this is an old military jet, and it's just hanging out in the woods there. And I'm sure there's a couple people on this call that might have visited this plane as well. And it crashed, I believe it was in the 1960s, and there was 2 passengers on the plane at the time, and they were leaving Floyd Bennett Airfield in Queens, and they had to have this emergency landing crash here in the swamp. And it was reported that there was a million snakes out there. I did not find any, thankfully. And but the plane, of course, was in very bad condition. And the good news was the 2 passengers did make it out okay. So good on them. But the government came over later on and removed the engine from this plane. And that plane has been sitting out there in this swamp ever since. And that was the thing. Somebody told me it was pretty muddy. They didn't say it was virtually a swamp. I didn't know that. So I went trekking out there one day trying to find it, because I had a rough idea where it was. I had a coordinate, but it wasn't the exact coordinates. And so I was just kind of traipsing around in the woods, as one does in the middle of the summer. And I eventually found it. And thankfully, I was smart enough to go with a friend that day. Again, you really should go with a friend to these things. But since this was outside, I thought, oh, I'll be fine. I'm just going to walk around outside in the woods. What can go wrong? So much. What happened was that as we were trekking over here, like I said, it was very swampy, not muddy, swampy. I mean, literally, you're just sinking into the ground. And I had gotten to this one point where when I stepped, I actually started sinking down, and I had sunk down so much, it was up to like my thighs. And now I'm freaking out, because now I don't have control of my legs, and I'm just sinking. And it was terrifying. And I was with a friend, and so I just started screaming to her. I'm like, okay, the earth is swallowing me whole, please help. And she was smart enough to go grab a branch, and literally, just like you see in the movies, someone had like extended a branch out to me and pulled it, and just, pulled me out of that hole. And that was pretty terrifying. And it may have lasted 5 minutes. And of course, it felt like a millennia to me. So I am very thankful to report that I'm alive and well after that whole thing. And I love this plane. I love this photo. But would I go there again in the summer? Absolutely not. I only recommend visiting this place probably in the deep, deep winter after there's been a very good freeze and the ground is absolutely frozen. It was very hard to, navigate over here. And at this point where I'm standing right here, when I took this photo, I was actually standing on the plane wing just so I wouldn't sink into the ground again. So nobody said this hobby was going to be easy, was it? Do we have any questions right now, Andrew, or should I continue?
No, I don't see any.
Okay, great. All right, so we'll move along. What's the next slide, please? All right. Oh, this is Bowcraft. I don't know if anybody remembers this amusement park out on Route 22. If you do, give me a, hell yeah in the chat. This was somewhere that was actually pretty near and dear to me. I went here pretty often as a child. And oh, look, Janet was there. She knows. And so I guess maybe at least a couple of you are familiar with this. And this was only about 35 minutes from where I grew up. Oh, Susan saw it too. Awesome. And so you guys know how fun this place was. It started out as just an archery place, and they started adding on little things like I think mini golf and a couple of other little things. And now you can see, at least from these photos, there's like a basketball court. I am definitely a Weird New Jersey fan, Marshall. Absolutely. That's how it all starts. All right. You start at Weird New Jersey. If anybody's not familiar, it's this magazine. I believe it's a bi-monthly magazine. Feel free to correct me. And they'll just tell you all these cool, weird stories about New Jersey, like old legends. Of course, they talk about the Jersey Devil in there, but they also show a lot of abandoned places as well. So yeah, Weird New Jersey is a great place. It's a biannual. Oh, okay. I thought it was a monthly. It shows you how often I pay attention. Thanks, Steve. So this place a friend had told me about is, like I said, he told me that it was abandoned. I didn't even know that. I had been going there forever since a kid. And so when he told me, I was like, well, I need to see that before they demolish it. And so I took a ride out there one morning, very early in the morning, so I wouldn't attract too much attention. And I was genuinely in shock. I mean, imagine going to an amusement park that you have gone to dozens of times as a child, and then coming here and just starting to see like the bricks are falling apart and the weeds and everything are growing up through the bricks and the windows are smashed or whatever is left over. And on the right here, you can see there was some bumper cars still left over. There really wasn't much left on this property. It looks like they had, from what I understand, they had sold a lot of the rides. And I guess this is whatever was left over, and they didn't get rid of that yet. So you can see there's a basketball game on the bottom left there that's slowly getting taken over by nature. And the funnel cakes place and had a bunch of like old tools hanging around, like a spatula and random stuff like that. And it's kind of trippy to see an amusement park, even though this was a small one, but to just see a place that's normally filled with so much life and kids running around and parents playing games to win their kids' toys and fun on the bumper cars and all that. And now it's just sitting there eerily quiet. And I was really glad my friend gave me the tip that this place was about to get knocked down so I could visit before it happened. So I know a lot of times people think when people go see abandoned places that they're there looking for trouble. And I can say the real photographers that go out there and check these places out, they're there just to document them. I know there's at least a couple people on this call that are my fellow explorers, and we understand. We go there, we take photos, and we just want to remember this because this space looks nothing like this today. They wind up converting this space into a huge apartment building. I think there's like 200 units going on there now. I haven't driven past it because I think it might be a little too sad for me. So I haven't gone there yet. And can I have the next slide, please, Andrew? Ah, yes, this place. And Steve is in the chat, so he might be able to remind me where this was. I want to say this was off of Route 46 or 23. Oh, you've never been. Okay. And so this actually was an old train car that was converted into a dining car and was also attached to a building. And as you can kind of see it in the middle photo there, all the way on the right, you can see that there's a building attached there. It's on Route 46. It's still there. Oh, nice. I know it's in rough shape today. I know there was like a rumor that went around that supposedly the cops trashed this place so explorers would stop going. Those who take photos and go visit abandoned buildings, we go by that kind of unofficial name, the explorers. So I was lucky enough to find this place, and it's just hidden away off the side of the road. And I just loved the idea of having an old school dining, beginning to, yes, I did. I definitely grew up here. Um, and I just heard about this. So when I found it on the side of the road, I thought it was amazing. An old dining train car. I was like, this is something I've got to see. And as you can see on the right there, they still had some tables in there and chairs and some plateware and all that kind of stuff. And on the left, of course, I had to be cute, and I decided to set up a little scene with the dishes and an old bottle of champagne I found in there. And this place was pretty amazing to see. Unfortunately, the actual building that was attached was in incredibly rough shape. It was, and yeah, I know you got to do a lot of research to find these places for sure. And this was tricky to get into. We found a chair so we could climb in there. And it's so sad to see this amazing historic train just sitting out there rotting away. And I was just so thrilled to be able to go see this and at least document this, because I don't know how much longer this will be here. I know they were having a really hard time. It was put up for sale. And from what I understand, nobody wanted to take on this project, and it's just sitting there wasting away. You know, hopefully maybe one day somebody will give it a new life. I will warn you though, if you are afraid of spiders, don't go anywhere near. There's a million. And so there, you know, me and my friend Karen went in there. We were just screaming like crazy. So we had to bring a big scary boy with us to protect us from all the spiders. But that was a great day. And I absolutely love this place. And I'm sad to hear that it's in worse condition today, unfortunately. Next slide. Yes, this beautiful, beautiful church. So this is a church in Jersey City. And today it looks nothing like this. I feel like there's a theme going on here that pretty much nothing I've photographed looks the same today. All the more reason to take these photos, right? And so this was an old church in Jersey City, and it got shut down. There was a little bit of a scandal attached here. I'm not terribly familiar with the scandal, but it had something to do with a very specific priest or minister that was at this church. And unfortunately, it got shut down, but it did not get shut down for that. It got shut down because, as you may or may not know, thousands of churches in the United States get shut down every single year. And that's, of course, because of dwindling attendance. And, you know, if they don't have enough attendance, they can't collect enough donations, or I'm not sure what else they call that, to keep the church running. So unfortunately, this is one of the churches where attendance dropped off and they just couldn't afford to keep it open anymore. So unfortunately, this one was shut. As you can see, there's no pews in here, unfortunately. I wish I had gotten to see them. I have not seen too many churches with pews, but that's always exciting when they're still available. And this place, the exciting part here, is that it is being converted into apartment units. That's why I'm saying it doesn't look anything like this anymore. And I was really glad to hear that they were actually going to keep everything they can intact, like the, you know, stained glass windows that they still had. Some on the upper level were still there. So they were going to keep that. And those would actually be part of the apartments up there. And they were going to keep these arches. And you see how, like, you have those pointed Gothic arches everywhere. They were going to try and keep as much of that as possible into the design of the new apartments taking over this space. I did pass by, I believe it was like a few months later after I had taken these photos, and I looked in the window, and sure enough, they were doing tons of work. There was new walls going up and everything. So it was really exciting to see a place as beautiful as this. You know, it's just amazing, like the colors and the architecture. And I have such an appreciation for this look. And I mean, Gothic architecture is just some of the best, absolutely. And so I'm really glad that this place found a second chance, we'll say. Next slide, please. Yes, there we go. So, for those of you who don't know, I have 3 books altogether. That's my website and that's my Instagram. And so I have Empire State of Decay, Garden State of Decay, and then Jersey City, The Real Chill Town, which just came out about a month ago. So those are my books, and I would love to answer some questions right now because I'm sure there are at least a few questions. And if don't be shy because I've just babbled on for like 35 minutes. So so I would love to hear some of what you folks have to say about that, or any questions or anything like that. Teresa thinks she's not sure if I grew up in New Jersey. I'm not sure why she says that.
If she really grew up in New Jersey.
I really, really did. Now, has anybody in this audience visited any abandoned buildings? Has anyone done anything like that before? Steve has. Steve, for the record. Hey, Laura. So what was the name of that church? You know, I'd have to look it up. That's a really good question. That's a really good question. Steve, who's in the chat here, is actually one of the photographers that inspired me in the beginning. He had an article in a newspaper where they interviewed him, and he was talking about how he went to abandoned places. And I was like, yes, this is what I need to do. I want to do that. I'm gonna go ahead and address the elephant in the room. With Carol, I promise it's not so scary. I will address the elephant in the room is number one is how do you find these places, right? And that requires a lot of research. So somebody brought up Weird New Jersey before, and that's a good place to start. You can look through there and they'll tell you about whatever. I know there's like a piece of an old amusement park down in Hamilton Park, right? Hamilton Township, excuse me, Hamilton Township. And so that's something cool to see. There's the village, what is it called? Feltville, that's it, Feltville Village. And that's over in Union County. And there's some really old houses there. And I inspired Deborah to bring out her camera, good for her. And so there's that old abandoned village of Feltville in Union County. And so that'd be a cool place to start, where you can just go and see some old houses, and you can't enter them. And there are some people that actually still live in there, even though these buildings look like they're about 4 seconds away from falling apart. And but that's a really cool place to start. There's some like really easy places where you can start if you ever wanted to start visiting older places. I actually do tours on Ellis Island, and I do tours of the abandoned hospitals over there, if anybody's familiar with that. And we do tours every single day, so I'm often doing that. I do that about 3 days a week. And so that's one of the safe places you can go to, and you know. No, I visit actually public and private, probably mostly private places. And the problem is half the times I don't even know who the owners are. And so sometimes I just have to do some digging. Sometimes it's just the city owns the property and hasn't done anything with it. And so it's just sitting there wasting away. So I just like to make sure I get the pictures in, you know. I just think this stuff is beautiful. And the more we can repurpose it, the better we are off, I feel like, you know what I mean? I think we're too quick to get rid of the old and build a new. And so that's probably why I'm so excited about that church in Jersey City, that now it's going to be apartments for people, because now it gets a second life. I mean, it's gorgeous architecture, be ashamed to waste it, you know?
Piggybacking on that, somebody has
Yeah.
a question. Can you talk about the legality of going to these places? Are you breaking and entering? How much trouble can you get into?
For the record, I do not recommend breaking and entering in anything. Okay. I have 2 out of my 3 brothers, 2 of them are cops. Okay. So I don't recommend that at all. What I do, if I can, I absolutely will try and get permission. And when I can get it, that's awesome. And so to go to a place, you know, Eastern State Penitentiary, for example, in Pennsylvania, they have tours all day long, and where you can do a self-guided tour. And that's a really amazing place where they have tons of abandoned stuff, and you can do it in a very safe environment, and you don't have to worry about getting permission or anything like that, or falling through a floor or stuff like that. So that's usually where I recommend people to start. But yeah, if you're on property and you weren't welcome there, then yeah, you could get in trouble. So that's why I don't necessarily recommend it. And no, there's no breaking and entering. I don't do that. My father would never forgive me. So, I just try to find a convenient way to get in that maybe there was a door left open. And so I'll just pop in, take a couple pictures and head right back out. I strongly believe in not disturbing anything that's there. I'm not talking about like moving a glass from here to there. That's something different, but I'm talking about like absolutely no destruction. Don't spray paint it, fire, all that. It's insane to me that people would do that. So yeah, it's kind of like hiking, it's like take nothing but, pictures, leave nothing but footprints. And I think a lot of the good explorers follow that, that mantra there. Have I ever been caught? I have. It's not fun. It's not fun. It feels really awkward and you feel really dumb. And fortunately, a lot of the times, not a lot of the times, I've only been caught a couple of times. Fortunately, people generally are reasonable. If you explain that I'm just a photographer, I was just taking pictures, I will certainly leave. I do not mean to cause you any trouble. And then you just head on out. And so you can get through it with that. Again, I don't recommend going anywhere where you weren't invited to. So you can avoid that whole problem right from the beginning. Am I worried about toxic exposure from the decaying buildings such as asbestos? Yes, but probably not as much as I should be, unfortunately. I do have a, what is it called? A respirator. And that blocks out. I have it one for with the filters. You've seen them before. And just think of what's his name? Heisenberg, say my name. You remember his little mask there? So I have one that blocks out lead. What else? Lead, asbestos, and a couple other things. So yeah, it is important to make sure to take care of yourself. I mean, just generally in safety, even if there was no asbestos or lead or anything like that or mold, you should just absolutely take care. Absolutely make sure you know where you're going, make sure you know what you're doing, make sure you go with someone, make sure somebody else knows where you are. Just make sure, just do anything, just be smart about it. That's really what I want to say, Have I ever gotten hurt? I have. When I was in Staten Island, and it was the simplest little silly thing. I was sliding under a gate to go see the farm colony, and I got a big old scratch right up my back here. So off to the doctor I went for a tetanus shot. There's another thing. So you see, this is dangerous, so I don't necessarily recommend it. I see there's another long one here. It's like Ellis Island of the West. Oh, Angel Island. Yes, I've heard about it. I've heard about Angel Island. I don't know. Is that still, can you visit it? Can you visit Angel Island? I'm not sure about that one. But yeah, regarding safety, just use your brains. Don't be reckless. Definitely don't mess around with like government property. That's a good way to get in trouble. Just be smart about it. Just be smart about it, for sure.
Have you ever gone to the Gingerbread Castle in Hamburg?
Yes, I actually have. I didn't get to go inside it. I don't remember why I didn't go inside it. And there's like a factory right next to it. And I know you're Cookie. And I did get inside. Unfortunately, the whole thing is wide open. And then I say unfortunately because yay, that's easy for me to get into, but it's also easy for everybody to get into. And I don't know if everybody's aware that there was a big scandal there at the gingerbread house up in Hamburg. And there was a girl, don't remember her name right now, and she was helping out like the caretaker or the owner, and she was helping kind of like rehabilitate the place. It had seen better days for sure. And I had gone over there with a couple of friends one day, and there's another mill right next to it. There's like a mill right next to that Hamburg castle. And so we went through there, and that place was huge. That just went on forever. So yeah, I didn't actually go inside the castle. Hopefully one day I will. We'll see, because I think the cops are way more aware of the place now after that whole scandal that went down a couple of years ago. It was some kind of like love triangle gone really bad. Is there a lot of cameras over there? I don't know. Maybe they have them now. I'm not sure. And so, oh, we saw, see, thank you, Darren. That's my friend reminded me in the group chat that we saw them. See, that's the good, I guess, thing is that I've seen so many places is that I started forgetting about who has what, and always constantly looking for the next exploration, to see what else is going to be next. I think Steve. So Steve said, what do I have planned for the future? Vacation would be nice. That's number one on my list. Actually, I've been working kind of nonstop. I just came out with a book. That's that Jersey City book that just came out about a month ago. And I might have another talk lined up. I'm still working out the details. Definitely plan on doing more photography. Definitely plan on going on more travels and seeing more things. I think I'm going to take a break from the books for a little bit. I'm not sure how familiar anybody is with writing a book, but it takes a lot of time. And while I love it, it just takes up a lot of time. And unfortunately, there's other projects that also need my time. So it's not unfortunate, but so it's like that good kind of problem, got a little too much work coming my way. So that's really awesome. And actually, where did I go recently? I went to a school recently, and this amazed me. This absolutely floored me, if you can believe this. I went to a school that was shut down, I think it was like 5 or 6 years ago. And this was up in Connecticut. And this was just a couple weeks ago. So I went to this school, and I was absolutely shocked at how much stuff was left in there. And this is another thing that just gets me going about these abandoned places. It's like, how can these supplies just be left there and not be in use? There was a million desks. I'm sure somebody could use them. The library was huge and gorgeous, had beautiful woodwork in there and everything. And yet there was thousands of books left over. And I'm saying, and it shocks me, because I'm like, there's no way you can't tell me, you can't tell me that there's nobody that could use these books, other libraries, other educational institutions, even if somebody wanted to set up a little library, like they do in the neighborhoods in front of their house. And it just shocks me that all these books were sitting there. And eventually we found the science lab. Yeah, I'm sure you're right, Steve. The curriculum changes. But we went into the science lab, and there was so many tons of supplies in there. There was like beakers and chemicals, and oh my God, we actually found like dead frogs, that they were dissecting in the, it wasn't for me. And so we actually saw that in there, but there was like tons and tons of supplies that were like brand new, untouched. And I'm like, you're going to tell me there's not another school that can use these supplies? I don't know. I'm not a scientist. I don't know, but it just, was there a sealed up pig fetus? No, I didn't. Thank God I didn't see that, Steve. I think I would have screamed. No, the frogs were enough excitement for me. And I was like, oof, no, thank you. And, but it just surprises me. And it's like, why can't we take a space like that and turn it into housing? You're going to tell me with the homelessness issue we have in this country that can't be converted into, just some apartments for somebody, low income housing. I mean, I know at least in my area, we're building up, luxury condos every single day, but yet I don't hear anything about, regular low income housing. So somebody has somewhere to sleep at night as opposed to the street. It's just, that's the thing that gets me about this. A, is that the history is getting forgotten, and B, resources are just being wasted, and it drives me nuts. And so if me talking about this book helps that and changes things around, that would be amazing. What is my favorite bando? So for those who don't speak urban exploration, bandos are the unofficial way of calling it an abandoned building. So we just say bandos because it's easier to say. There is a couple. There's an amazing mansion in Pennsylvania, and it's a very historic mansion, and it's not going to be too hard to find if you go to look it up. And it actually has ties to the Titanic. And it's sitting there abandoned because the gentleman that was supposed to inherit it, there was two gentlemen that I think were going to inherit it. And we all know what happened to the Titanic. So they never got to come over here and claim their property. And so the property went to the women in the family, and the women didn't want to have anything to do with it. They didn't want to be responsible for this huge mansion and all its upkeep and all that. And then the story just gets a little convoluted after that. I'm not 100% sure what happened after that. And it was just kind of left there. And then I understand that there was some kind of church that bought the property, and that they wanted some tax, tax exemption because they were a church. And this Commonwealth of Pennsylvania said, I don't think so. This is a mansion and this is a home, and you will pay taxes on it. And so it kind of got stuck in all these legalities and going back and forth. And so it's just sitting there today. Actually, I think there might be a brand new owner. I think there was like a new development in the last couple of months. So hopefully that beautiful place gets a new life, a new lease on life, because that was quite a beautiful mansion. And there's so many good favorite ones, though. I don't even know how. I guess I picked that one because that was like, the great white whale. And that was so exciting to finally get into that one, though, for sure. I've had some where they were very creepy, and I've actually had to climb through a hole on the wall. That was not fun. I don't recommend that at all. What I recommend if anybody wants to get into this or check this out, seriously, as I mentioned, definitely go check out places like Eastern State Penitentiary in Pennsylvania, or if you want to go look at the abandoned hospitals at Ellis Island, anything like that, simple stuff, the abandoned village of Feltville, things like that. Those are very easily accessible, and chances of you getting injured are slim to none. So we want to keep it that way. I don't recommend what I do to everyone because it's not for everyone. Yes, there are paid tours as well. Absolutely. Good point, Steve. There's some local photographers in the area, in the Northeast area, that do photography tours of abandoned theaters and various places. I can't remember his name right now, but there's a guy up in like the New England area, and he does a lot of these tours, and he has access to several old theaters. And so you pay him, I don't know, $100 or $150, something like that. There you go, Matt Lambros. And you can schedule tours with him. And so he's doing that, and that's a nice legal way to do it as well. So you don't have to worry about legalities. The places usually are in still very rough shape, so you still have to pay attention to where you're walking and doing all that good stuff there. But that's a good way to go see this stuff instead of doing it in the crazy ways that we do it here. Does anybody else have any other questions? I love all the textures. I know. That's, I did you ever go underground? Oof. If you mean like in creepy tunnels, yes. There's the hospital in Staten Island. And unfortunately, how you access most of the hospital is going through these creepy tunnels, and I hate it. And I've gone there a couple of times, and I'll usually go with at least 2 or 3 people because I find it just too darn creepy. I don't love it. And I haven't gotten to see the whole place because it's humongous. It's humongous. And again, that's another place with tons of stuff left behind. I mean, that stuff is very antiquated at this point, so I can't imagine it being repurposed. But just old beds and wheelchairs galore. I mean, I've even seen wooden wheelchairs in these places, which is crazy. If you've never seen one before, it's pretty trippy when you first see one. But yeah, if it requires tunnels, I usually try to avoid that. I'm just not a fan of the tunnels. They're very creepy. I don't like it. And let's see what else we have going on. So a couple of other places that I wanted to tell you about is that there is a location down in Mercer County, and there's a couple places there. There's a few places, unfortunately, in Mercer County, because there's some parts of Mercer County that aren't that great, and especially in Trenton. And some of those spaces are just sitting there empty. And one is a huge hospital. There's a lot of security there. So I'm not telling you to go there. I don't recommend going anywhere you're not welcome and you're not permitted. Do not do that. But that hospital is sitting there completely empty. And again, there's a huge church over there sitting there completely empty. There's what's the other thing? There's like they called it the senior home, which is sitting nearby that church. And there's so many empty locations. And I just know that there's something we can do with these spaces better, better for the environment, better for the community, better for everyone, really. The PA Turnpike was, oh, there you go. That's right, the Pennsylvania Turnpike. I completely forgot. For those of you who don't know, excuse me, there's the Pennsylvania Turnpike, and oh, well, thank you for joining us, Michelle. There's the Pennsylvania Turnpike, and part of it was bypassed, and so part of it just sits there completely empty. And so if you do like tunnels and you like that creepy stuff, you could always take a ride out to the Pennsylvania Turnpike and head down there. Definitely bring yourself some flashlights and probably a couple provisions. You'll probably be out there for a while, so would definitely bring some water and some snacks with you. And it takes quite a while to walk through the whole big tunnel, but that's something really cool. It reminded me so much of Stephen King's The Stand when we had walked through that tunnel that time. And that's all I kept thinking about, if anybody saw that, because a lot of it's very surreal, especially living in a state as busy as New Jersey. And I'm sure everybody's well aware of, we are extremely heavily populated here. So to find quiet spaces here in New Jersey or in this area, in this tri-state area, it's always bizarre because it's such a loud place. It's a busy place. The population is, through the charts in this area, New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania. And so when we find these little hidden places that are quiet, and you can just take a moment to take in what happened there before, it's something else. I definitely recommend it. Have you ever seen the Port Colden Manor? I have not. Where is that? It sounds like something I might want to do then, right? Tell me more, Danielle. Oh, well, then I'm going to have to go over there. It's in New Jersey. I'm going to have to go check that out. Thank you, Danielle. Port Colden Manor. I will definitely check that out. There's a lot of awesome, historic places here. There's the Shippen Manor in New Jersey. They're having their grand reopening, I think, in a couple of weeks or something like that. So even if you're, okay, I'm not interested in that old, the abandoned stuff and falling through floors and stuff like that, there's plenty of amazing historical places that you can visit, and it won't be nearly as scary or dangerous, for sure. And I think it's important. I think it's important for us to remember our history and to see these things, because there's sometimes architecture and, there was even crazy stories I had learned on Ellis Island where, you didn't even understand that this is how medicine was practiced before. So I think my constant curiosity is what has kept me going. Prior to finding this hobby, I'll be quite honest with everybody here, I was pretty bored with life. I'm telling you, that 9 to 5 thing, I just didn't get it. I was like, why, what's the point of this, And so when I discovered this hobby, this kind of gave me a whole new lease on life personally. It changed up everything. It changed everything I do. And if you can find something that gives you that little magic, that little spark, do it, follow it. And I'm sure you won't be disappointed, It is a great hobby. Like I say, Mike, maybe quite engaging along with our 23-year-old. Oh yeah. Oh my God. I'm probably one of the oldest people in this biz right now. And it actually is usually appealing much more for the younger folks. I have friends that I hang out with that are also younger, and they refer to me and a couple other friends as the elders. So we're the old people hanging around in the old buildings. And but I love it. I really do. It's just gorgeous to see what was existed before, and just see the history and see how people lived before. And always, that's great. I think it's really great. And I would definitely start at some of those, like I said, more common legal places, I'm blanking here, the penitentiary in Pennsylvania. So yeah. Thank you all so much for coming here today. I'm going to pretty much wrap it up from here, if that's okay with you, Andrew. If there's any more questions, feel free to shove them in the chat. Otherwise, I think we're going to wrap it up from here. Is that all right with you, Andrew?
Yeah, that's fine. Yes, this program is being recorded. So once it's available on our YouTube channel, I will send a link out to everybody who registered. So be on the lookout for that, as well as Alex's contact information in case you want to follow up.
Yeah, that'd be great. Awesome. Thank you all so much for coming today. You make a girl feel special.
All right.
And thank you, Andrew. Thank you so much. And thank you to the library, of course.
Absolutely. We loved having you, and I encourage everyone to get out there and explore New Jersey, whether it's through these abandoned buildings or, your local park or whatever. Just New Jersey has a lot of great things to offer. So enjoy it as the weather gets warmer. So thank you, Alex. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today, and everybody be safe, be well, and hopefully we'll see you soon.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.